Okay, well, I've had a hell of a time connecting the microphone to do the voiceover, but I promised you guys a demo on bowls and how dead simple they are to throw. So that's what I'm doing here. You can see me kind of getting the clay into a bowl to kind of get it started. General good practice to do. Either a bowl or a cone usually works, or a ball or a cone. Sorry, I don't know why I said bowl. Once again, wetting the wheel head to increase adhesion of the clay to the bat. And if you look at the bat closer, you can see either the bat is warped or I've got to take apart the wheel and check and see if it got knocked out of true with all the moves. This is a 23-year-old wheel, so it's gonna have some issues. They don't even make this model anymore. It's Clay Boss, the original Clay Boss before they got bought out, and it's probably one of the most solid wheels I've ever worked with. I'm hoping it's not the wheel head that's the connection to the wheel head that's warped. I'm hoping it's just the bats, because the bats are just as old and they get worn out over time. And I think that's probably the case here. With the lack of stability I have right now and the wobble in the wheel, it's a little bit of a challenge to get things centered and thrown now. You can see that right forearm just moving all over the place. I'm gonna have to start hitting the weights harder, as well as throwing more often, because that's the only way I'm going to build those muscles. So I'm coning up the clay, doing what's called wheel wedging, where you bring it up and then you push it back down, and it kind of helps compress all the clay particles. I'm not having too hard of a time centering it this time. I'm getting a little more used to this clay. It's a little harder than I like, but I'm getting more used to it, and getting more back into the groove of throwing, so it's going to get easier and easier. Maybe one day I won't even have to time-lapse these videos anymore. When I always do a time-lapse video of the full-length throwing video. Time-lapse doesn't have voiceover or anything, but... So I've almost got it centered, getting ready to drop the hole, flatten it, leveling out the top. And kind of getting some of that skirt pushed in a little better so I don't have too much excess clay to remove. And you can't see my tools in this one, but they are actually laid out properly this time. But I did say I was going to switch sides to give you a better angle of what my hands are doing. I'm using the long bone of my hand as well as the first knuckle of my pinky finger to kind of get it centered into where I'm going to drop the hole, kind of push it down a little bit. And I push in with two thumbs to give me a little more room for my fingers. And then now I'm pushing in, dropping the hole, and getting it. And pretty soon, once I get the hole as deep as I want it, you'll see me start to widen it out a bit to the width of the base of the bowl that I want to do. I wanted to do something really nice and rounded, and so kind of start out like this, straight. Almost every shape seems to start with a straight cylinder, at least at the beginning. It's just continuing to work. And now I'm kind of compressing the bottom of the pot so that it won't develop a nest crack, and if I were to fire it, or as it's drying. Of course, this is like the other pieces. These are not going to be fired. At least that's not my intention. Pardon the yawn. It's about almost 10 o'clock at night here. And I wanted to do this voiceover 2 hours ago, but like I said, I was having technical difficulties. For some reason, my computer was not recognizing my external mic. And I have a couple, but the other one I can't find. It's an old one. It's an old Blue Yeti that uses a USB-A, and I cannot find a USB-A connection. So I had to just keep trying this until I got it the computer to connect to the microphone properly. First time I've ever had that problem though. So I'm compressing the floor more. I'm using the rib tool to do it. And this is where I mess up bad. I corrected it, but you'll see me, I gouged it, being careless. And you can see me laugh about it and basically say, oh crap, you know. And so I'm trying to straighten out that nick I made in the wall because it'll make my walls uneven. And I didn't have enough clay to do that with without putting in new clay, which could put air in there. So I just worked with it, and I've thrown with stuff that's had like gouges in the walls before, so I'm kind of used to. Well, not used to. That makes it sound like I do it all the time, but I've had experience with throwing with uneven walls and evening them back out, and I do it pretty successfully on this pot. I didn't have to trim off the top at all for any wobble. I mean, it's not going to be perfectly true, but it likely never will be until I figure out what's causing that wobble when the wheel's spinning. Because it's either in the wheel head or the bat, so I'm going to have to figure that out. So after I finish the other carving I'm working on tomorrow and do the videos for those, I'm going to be trying to figure out why this wheel is not level 100%. But it didn't cause me too much problems. But as I get into more complicated pieces, it may become an issue. The bowls are dead simple. Now, if I go to throw a genie vase, wide belly with a thin, tall neck, that will be an issue. But that's a little bit down the line because I'm not up to that again yet. It used to be one of my favorite things to throw. But I think the biggest one I ever threw was about 3 feet tall. And I had to add on more to the neck, make the pot in 2 parts, and then add more clay to the top of the neck, and then throw it up higher so I could get to the height that I wanted. It was a fun project. So here I'm pulling up the walls, and I'm pulling out as I'm pulling up instead of pulling straight out to kind of get that bowl shape started. You can see the throw rings on the inside of the pot. And you'll see it develop a wobble a couple times when it hit that gouged out section of clay, but again, I recover it. Not 100%, but pretty close. So I'm getting out all the excess water from the bowl. And we're a little over halfway through this throwing. And now I'm pulling up the bottom, getting more clay up to the top to give it some more height, and also to kind of give it some more width as well. And I'm going to start rounding off the top to have it kind of go into that nice curved shape, which is a really good shape to do if you're doing casseroles. People seem to love that shape. Of course, this way you pull that lip in more, you leave a little bit more clay at the top, and so you can create a galley for the lid. But I've done a few of those over the years. My sister still has one of my pieces from that. It's one of the only pieces that I can still see that wasn't sold, or I still know the people who own it. And I made like this carved cow, and it was a casserole. It had longhorn or horns for the handles, and then a little dairy cow sitting on top. It was pretty cool, fun project. A little bit of sculpture, a little bit of throwing. And you'll find with a lot of my pottery, there's always a little bit of sculpture, a little bit of throwing. Then I finish that pot in the background that's covered up in the plastic. You'll start to see more of it. And this bowl is going to be carved basically similar patterns. I love the spiral. I was very highly influenced as a kid by The Dark Crystal and Brian Froud's work in that movie. And Celtic culture and Irish culture, utilizing a lot of spirals and knotwork and stuff like that. I don't tend to do knotwork, but I do love to do the spirals. Plus, with there's an obsession of mine with the mathematical perfection of it, with the Fibonacci sequence, Fibonacci spirals. And when you watch the carving video of the earlier piece. It's not quite finished yet, but when I get it done, when you watch it, you'll see that I can pretty much freehand those Fibonacci spirals at this point. Not perfectly, but I don't want to do perfect. If I wanted perfect, I'd just buy a machine bot made piece. I used to try and strive for perfection in my pots. And again, it's the wabi-sabi concept. But not the striving for perfection, but accepting the imperfections. But I had several customers of mine who loved my stuff, but they wish there were more imperfections in them because they liked the look of the imperfection. It gave it the artist's hand to it. So I started just embracing the slight wobbles and stuff like that instead of trying to fix them. And I could fix them, but it doesn't look as handmade. It looks machine made if you do it too much. And you go for too much perfection. So, I mean, why are you going to pay $50 to $100 for a piece of pottery when you can buy that's perfect and doesn't look any different from something you'd buy at Walmart that's been machine manufactured and slip cast and everything else? So, I mean, kind of distinguish your work from the manufactured stuff is leave the imperfections in there. Leave your fingerprints. Leave some throw lines. Have a little bit of a wobble. And it's okay. It makes it unique. Now I'm done with I've finished the dough in the bowl. Now I'm just cutting off the skirt and almost done with it. As you saw, I was beveling it out earlier, and that's like I was doing with the vase. It was you put more pressure on the inside than on the outside, and you just kind of shape it with your hands as you go. Takes practice, but bowls are one of the easier ways to do it because it works with the way the wheel moves. Like if I took and pressed on that foot pedal and floored it, that pot would spin out and it would widen until it flew off the wheel, sometimes shearing off a whole wall of it. I had that happen to a 50-pound piece I was working on, biggest piece I ever threw. And I was really proud of it. It was like 4 or 5 feet tall. But I was working on a kick wheel with a motor backup. And I wound up, when I stood up, I slipped on the kick wheel and spun it really fast. And that was the end of that piece. £50 of clay, right back into the slop bucket, and start over. Now I'm about to wire it off. You saw that I put the water underneath it, which was not successful this time. I didn't use enough water. Plus, this clay is really sticky. It's one of the stickiest clays I've worked with. Must have a lot of bentonite or something like that in there. But it is just very sticky. So, and that's done. I'm going to see if I can lift it off. I could feel that it wasn't going to go. And you don't want to force it because you'll just warp your pot completely. I mean, you can even warp it when you pull it off the bat like that, but generally once the bat flattens out, it'll flatten back out. And there's the finished piece. Didn't get a good view, but I couldn't see.